What is Jordan Ott's case for winning Coach of the Year at this present moment?
I think right now he probably would be the leader in the clubhouse.
Legs, as always, appreciate you for joining us here on PHNX Suns. And the Suns are a team who you recently called one of your biggest surprises in the NBA. I guess kind of what went behind your rationale with being so surprised by this team, and how sustainable is what you've been so surprised by with this team?
Well, so obviously they went in a totally different direction with their top talent, right, and what they had been acquiring, and they just decided to go in a different direction. And so you're not really sure how that's going to look. But the one thing that I kind of felt about this team going into the season, just based on the last few years, was how are you going to change overnight, like the seriousness with which they have to approach games? Because there was times I watched them last year and it just was like a lethargy about them or like a complacency about them. Obviously, the offense, the flow wasn't really there. The pieces didn't really fit. It was more like a, kind of like your turn, my turn type of offense, which does not win in this league. But it was more than that. It was like all of the little things. How are you going to do it? Look, and I know that they made personnel changes, and I was paying attention to that, and I was looking at that. Dylan Brooks coming in, like I'm looking at that. Like, what's the impact going to be there? And kind of giving the team back to Devin and making it like his offense again and everything built around him. And he's done that before, and he played on a team that went to the finals playing that way. So I was like intrigued. But to change the culture and let's just like visually the product of how much harder they're playing, how much more connected they look, how much more it looks like they care about each other. Like that's not an easy thing to accomplish. So to pull that off, particularly look, and I didn't know much about Jordan Ott. He's a first-time head coach. He's coming into this, and I'm saying, okay, I understand the personnel moves they made. That makes sense to me. But now, how are you going to be able to create that level of change like that fast? So for me, this has been one of, if not the most pleasant surprise in the NBA. And I can honestly say, man, they've got my admiration, respect, and they're fun. Like I'm going to watch them on League Pass. I'm searching for the Suns games.
Tim, the Suns at this present moment are 7th in the West. They're a half game behind the Lakers, a full game behind the Houston Rockets. They have wins against the Thunder. They have a couple wins against the Lakers. A couple wins against some other teams ahead of them in the Western Conference standings. In respect to what those other teams are doing in the present landscape of the West right now, what's the potential or ceiling that you see for this team as we kind of project going forward?
I mean, for me, looking at it right now, I would probably put their ceiling at 5. Because I'm looking at the West is loaded. I mean, look at these teams at the top of the Western Conference. You got Oklahoma City. We know about them. San Antonio has gotten there quicker than we all thought would happen, and that's a legit team. They're very deep, very tough. They defend. They've got this, freakish superstar at the top. So they're there. Denver might be, when it's all said and done, the biggest threat to the Thunder in the entire league, particularly what they're showing right now, how they're playing without Jokic. 6-3. It's incredible what they're doing, and they're going to get him back. Christian Brown's going to come back at some point. Peyton Watson's taking his game to another level. So Denver to me might represent the biggest threat of all. Then of course you got Minnesota. They're playing great right now. They've had some signature wins. Been to the conference finals 2 years in a row. So I think those 4 are solidly the top 4. Now you look at the Lakers and the Rockets. Can the Phoenix Suns get into that area? Right now, the Lakers have some serious issues. I mean, you look at what happened last night. They gave up 135 points at home to Charlotte. Now, I know Charlotte just went in and put a beat down on Oklahoma City too, but it's still, you're the Lakers and you're struggling right now and you're trying to find continuity. Charlotte comes into your building. You cannot give up 135 points and really not be competitive in the fourth quarter. They're in real trouble right now. Something is going on with that team. Everybody looks frustrated. They do not look like they're connected at all. And then the Houston Rockets have, in my opinion, have underachieved with what they've been doing. And there's some things about their offense I don't like. So I look at Phoenix. I'm like, they're right there with those teams. 2 games back in the loss column of both of those teams. And the Lakers almost in free fall right now. And the Houston Rockets, kind of like underachieving to this point. If I'm Phoenix, like I think that's realistic. The way they have played, the consistency of their effort, how much better their offense has looked, I think that could possibly be within reach. But, man, the West is no joke.
And I think just before we let you get to Gil, the team that's in 4th right now, if they were to get to 5th, Minnesota. That's a team that the Suns have not lost against yet this season. They won 1 at home and 1 on the road. So I imagine that's one of the quote-unquote favorable matchups if you're looking at having to go against them or go against any of the 3 teams ahead of them in the standings right now.
Yeah, listen, man, it's they've played these teams tough, and that's the thing that's different now about them is even last year, regular season, Suns could put up numbers, they could get a little mini winning streak, whatever, but like the way they were regarded around the league and the actual threat just wasn't really there. People didn't really feel it around the league. They feel that way with this team. Like you have to show up and you've got to kill them to beat them because they're going to keep coming at you, and there's a toughness about them that they lacked, and they've got it now. So, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they've played Minnesota well, so I'm sure they would relish that. I think for them, rather than think about standings and where we can climb to and what else, it's really honestly about day by day continuing to just, practice those winning habits and then looking at their roster and just seeing if there's something that they can do potentially to add to their depth going into the trading deadline.
Last time we talked about Jalen Green's imminent return. Hasn't happened just yet, but
Yeah.
we're getting closer as it seems like that. And there are two elements of it. Obviously, the physical aspect that's kept him out so long, but there's a mental aspect because he's missed so much time. From your perspective as a former player, how difficult is that mental part to trust yourself again, to get back to being yourself? And I guess how important is it to kind of ease Jalen back into what he's going to be expected to be for this team?
Hardest part to get when you come back from a long injury is the playing process without thinking and just going and trusting your body and landing and jumping in traffic and reckless abandon when you attack the rim, not worried about like stopping real quick if you're running forward to plant turn and run the other way if there's a turnover. Like, it's just you're so worried about ever feeling it again, like what you went through. It takes time to just go play and trust your body, right? And trust your muscle memory. It takes time, man. It's far more difficult mentally than it is physically. And they put you through all kinds of stuff as much as they can, but it's not replicating what it's like when you actually get in a game and guys are riding your hip when you're dribbling, or you got to fight over a screen, or whatever, you're being held off the ball and you're trying to break free. Like that is a totally different thing than what he is experiencing now. And honestly, to be perfectly honest, like it takes longer now for guys to get back to that level because there aren't as many like tape them up, go at it in practice days. There just aren't. Like when I was playing in the league, you taped up almost every day. Like you were going to do scrimmaging. Like didn't matter what the schedule was. Everybody was taping up and you were going to go at it at some point that day. You were going to get after it. They don't do that as much in the modern NBA. It's all about preservation of legs and rest, and that's what they're worried about mostly. So it takes even longer before you really feel confident that you've put your body through enough in simulation to go back out on the court in the game and just let it loose. So people are going to have to be patient with him when he comes back. It's going to take a little time for him to get there. But, man, what an explosive talent to add to the mix when you've already played as well as they have. And it's going to take a while to mesh a guy that plays the way he plays, ball dominant, very electric as a scorer. He can shoot the ball off the ball, which is going to help playing with Book, but it's still, you have to blend in a guy like this. He's a high volume usage guy. He's a high volume shot guy. And that's like, you're adding that into your offense. This isn't a spot up 3-point shooter or like a big that sets picks and runs to the rim. This is a guy that has the ball in his hands a lot. And you've been playing well offensively. So they're going to be better with him, clearly, but it's going to take time. And it might be some growing pains early on.
Tim, it feels like it's abundantly clear that the Suns' identity stamp inside of the ball is their defense. That's what's going to determine what we assume is their ceiling this season. At this present moment, seventh in general defensive rating, 8th in the half court against top 10 teams. They're 7th and then 12th respectively there. What do you make of their defensive potential as they've kind of shown a lot? They're one of the league leaders in terms of pressure, switching, all of those kind of nuanced things. What do you make of their potential as a team on that end?
I love their potential, and I think, look, Dillon Brooks has obviously had a big impact on this. Right? His mentality, his toughness, and the way he can just get under guys' skin, opponent's skin. But he just sets a tone for them. I think that and a level of commitment that is very contagious and infectious. And what I like about them is the switchability on the perimeter with a number of guys, and I think their guards and wings do a pretty good job of being able to get switched onto a longer player and defend them well. The thing I love most about the Suns when I watch them, there's a commitment to not letting anybody play on an island defensively. And that's really what changes things in the NBA for teams. When you commit to each other that you can trust me, that you're not going to have to play in an island in the post on a mismatch. You're not going to get ISO'd on a mismatch on the perimeter. If there's a ball screen to be set and we have a certain assignment that we've gone over, depending on where the screen's taking place, who's involved in the screen action. Every team has different coverages for that. You've got to trust that those guys are going to be on top of the assignment and the coverage that you're expecting your big to provide for you on that particular action. And they're doing all of those things. That, like, the communication and the trust factor and just the commitment to each other is so obvious with them, and the switchability of some of their wings. That lends itself to being a really good, consistent defensive team, which I think for the most part they've been.
You mentioned everything with their defense. They have the personnel that allows them to do that. And you just talked about maybe adding some depth. So I'm curious what you think about the potential of adding depth and where the depth stands on this team once they eventually get fully healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jalen Green's going to come back, and that's going to obviously change a lot because he can be, your point guard when you need him to be. He can play off the ball when you need him to be. So in a lot of ways, you get two positions filled when he comes back in your depth chart. It's an additional point guard. It's an additional off guard. Sometimes you're going to play three guards at the same time, and he can slide over because he's got the athletic ability to do it. You just look at their right now without Jalen Green. Eventually, I don't know if the plan is to start him immediately or like what they're going to do with him. I mean, look at Wembanyama still coming off the bench. He came off the bench for like 10 games. I think he's back starting now, but it's like, I never saw that before. Typically nowadays, like, the guys that was very prevalent, like in my era, but now, like, stars get hurt. They start right away. They've been out 2 months. Oh yeah, you're starting right immediately. So I don't know what the plan is for him. Maybe initially he's off the bench a little bit, giving him some punch. Obviously, he's going to be a starter at some point. So that's going to bump one of the guys that's starting now to the bench. That's going to give them more depth because I don't think they've got a ton of firepower right now on their bench, but they've got guys that fill other roles and they continue to play hard and they give them other things. They need more pop, and adding Jalen Green to the starting lineup will create a little bit more of that just by sheer numbers. Somebody's going to slide down to the bench that's a very capable scorer.
Tim, as we mentioned earlier, we heard who your two surprise teams were in the league. I think your Coach of the Year candidates aligns with that as well. So for the Suns side of things, what is Jordan Ott's case for winning Coach of the Year at this present moment?
I think right now he probably would be the leader in the clubhouse. I think there's a number of good candidates. And man, there's some really good young coaches in this league and really impressing me, particularly guys that have gotten their first opportunity. Mitch Johnson had an opportunity last year as an interim, but that's not the same thing as this. And you're following a legend in Greg Popovich. Now, he's got a lot of talent there. They've had some high picks. You get Wembanyama, and you get the Rookie of the Year, Stephon Castle, then you get Harper. It's like, man, that's a wealth of talent, but that doesn't mean it's all going to come together. So Mitch Johnson definitely is a candidate in there, along with Jordan Ott. I think Jordan would probably be the leader just because of the way that people kind of viewed the Suns. People knew the Spurs were like on their way up. They were ascending just by the nature of who they've added. And Wembanyama was hurt last year, so you just figured if he stays healthy, you knew where that team was going. There were a lot of question marks about the Phoenix Suns, the way the last few years went. Jordan Ott has stabilized that franchise. And so for me, he probably would be the leader. And I'm going to give one more shout out to a guy that I think deserves some recognition because it might be his best coaching job of his career. And I've always been a fan, but to me, he's taken some unwarranted criticism over the years, and that's Joe Mazzulla. I mean, look at what the Celtics have done without Jason Tatum. I mean, you got Jaylen Brown. Derek White is a kind of a borderline all-star caliber player, really, really good player, like the glue for them. But then you just look at the next guys on the list in terms of where they're getting their buckets from. And it's amazing. Jaylen Brown's taken his game to a level that was just been incredible without Tatum. But I think Mazzulla has proven a lot. I don't think he'll win the award, but I do think he's probably going to get some votes. But as we sit here right now, halfway through the season, I think Jordan Ott's got as strong a case as anybody.
Yeah, there you have it. Legs, as always, very appreciative of you taking time out of your schedule to chat with us, talk about the Suns a bit. And for those of you looking to find Legs, you can turn on your TV. You can find him across the All City Network on the All NBA podcast with Adam Martez. So appreciate you. You're always smarter from talking to Legs and also listening to what he has to say. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Anytime, guys. Yeah, you got it. I'll talk to you soon.